last video, we set up an event, defined an event, and then set the event so that it would be triggered anytime one of the slot windows finished rolling. And we also set up a little function that would be called to disable the button when the button was pressed. Now what we're going to do in this video is we're going to actually deal with handling the event when it happens, and we're going to set that up so that when all three windows have triggered the event, it will re-enable the button. Okay, so we're going to start there. Okay, and by starting there, I've already actually done this in main, where, let me bring it up. And so in main, I've created a extra function called enable lever, and it looks very much like the disable lever, but we're going to let main do the work here. Okay, so rather than the event handler doing the work, we're encapsulating what the button does in main, and so the event handler is going to call this function in main to do its job. Okay, so now we've done that, and we're actually ready at this point to create our event handler. And to do that, we're just going to go, I hope you remember, into the Assets, the Scripts tab, and we're going to right click to get the menu up, and we're going to select Create C# Script. Okay, that's the quick way to do this. Okay. You could have added it here as an asset, or there's more than one way to do this, but this is really the quick way to create your script. And we're going to change the name of it from New Behavior. Yeah. Okay, and it's being a little bit slow. We're going to change that name to Event Handler. Okay. There we go. And you can see it changed in the inspector. And it doesn't have much. It's got the standard mono behavior framework, but we're going to add to that pretty quickly. And of course, now that it's done this, it wants to rebuild what it can, even though we haven't really changed any code. So let's double click this to open it up in Visual Studio, and there we have it. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do, because this is going to be an event handler, it needs to be able to handle events, and so I'm going to set up a using. By the way, I haven't talked about using much before. Using in C# is kind of equivalent to includes in Java or C. Basically, when you have some resources where a large part of the resources are predefined or precompiled, then you get at that library code by invoking using for that particular library. And that way you can then bring those resources in without having to exhaustively define them. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to be using Unity Engine events. Okay, and that brings in all the built-in event stuff. It doesn't actually include the code, but it makes it available so that if I use some of those things, then they will be defined in my code, and at compile time, it will bring in the appropriate parts as it needs to. Okay, so we're going to be doing events. And so because we're doing events, we need to define some stuff. Okay, and I'm doing this because I already know what I need, but hopefully you'll see this and kind of can use this as an example. So public slot roller Okay, so notice slot roller is the class, and remember we've got that class, but we have actually three different things that are built on that class. Okay, and so this is what we're going to want to eventually get to, is the code in the slot roller class. So this is why I'm doing this. Public slot roller, slot roller 2, 1, and public slot roller 2. So I'm still using that convention where I lowercase the instance of the class and uppercase the class name itself. Okay, so we got those. As it turns out, because we also want to access that enable the button function that's in main, we're going to need to put that in there. So public game object and main is what we'll call it, lowercase. Okay. I know that main is actually a class main, uppercase M, but I'm actually going to access it as a game object. Okay, and it'll work because game object is the superclass that main is built from. Okay, so I've got those. I also need a couple other things. Okay, I need a couple of locks because the logic of this, private in this case. Nobody else needs access to these locks. Private, and a lock is Boolean. It's either locked or unlocked. Lock 1 and private bool lock 2. It's anticipating me very well. Okay, and so what's going to happen is the first window to finish is going to unlock lock 1. Okay, it'll check and see, is lock 1 locked? If it isn't, it knows it's the first one, and so it'll unlock it. And then the second one comes in, it sees lock 1 is unlocked, but it'll find lock 2 is still locked, so it'll unlock that one. And then finally the third one will come in, and it'll see both lock 1 and lock 2 are unlocked, and so it knows it's the last one, and so it'll relock them both for the next time, and then call the function that enables the button to be used again. Okay, so we need these little lock variables so that we can actually use them to determine whether or not we're done. Okay. All right. Some other stuff we're going to do in here. We've got to start. And when we start, we want to initialize everything. So the easy ones are the locks. Lock 1 is true. Equals true. And lock 2, it's anticipating me again, is equal to true. Okay, so they start out locked, and we unlock them as we come into them. Okay, and then game object. Okay, window is equal to game object dot find. And what we're going to find is slot window. Okay. So what this does is it goes out there, and like I said, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the instances of slot roller, but those are buried in the window instances. And so I'm actually going out there and getting those instances. But since I don't really need to know in great detail what they are, rather than calling them slot windows, whatever prefab that is, we're just going to treat them as a game object. And then game object comes with some built-in methods like find, and so I can find the particular game object I'm looking for, and that's what that'll do. Okay. Once I find that, then I can actually turn that in so that slot roller, the instance, okay, is equal to window dot, and because it's a game object, it knows that it's got components, so get component. Okay, and then what kind of component? If you recall, we use generics to figure that out. Well, I know that it's going to be a slot roller. Okay, so there I go. And so it'll find, finally, slot roller for me because it gets the window and says, okay, what instance of slot roller is associated with window? Once I've done that, I want to associate that slot roller. Actually, I want to associate a piece of code in that slot roller to our new handler, which we haven't even written yet, but I already know what I'm going to name it. So that becomes slot roller, okay, dot stop roll. If you remember, stop roll is what we called our event, not the, let's go look at this again just to be sure we remember, okay. Slot roller is not the delegate, okay, but stop roll, slot roller dot stop roll is the name of the actual event that we're delegating as a slot roll event, okay. So back to here. So slot roller dot stop roll, and we're going to add, because it's a delegate, boy, it sounds like I said delegate, because it's a delegate. Okay, we are going to add to it the actual handler that's going to that it's going to delegate to. And so here's where we finally do that. Okay, and so we're going to call that handle stop roll. Okay, and I haven't written that function yet. Oops, but I'm going to. Okay, and that's what I'm going to call it. And so you notice it doesn't look like a function because I didn't put the parentheses in, but it's the function name. And all I'm doing is associating the function name that it's actually going to use with the delegate name, which is stop roll. Okay, so this means that I'm going to have to write the handle stop roll function in a minute, and we're going to get to that. Okay, so now I just need to copy this twice more and change things. So instead of window this time, it's window 1, slot window 1, and let's see, slot roller 1 for window 1, and the type or the class is still stop roller, and then slot roller 1 stop roll equals handle stop roll, and that should work. Okay, and then the same thing for 2. So window 2, game object finds slot window 2, slot roller 2 equals window 2 get component slot roller 2 dot stop roll, okay, associates with handle stop roll. And there we have those 3 items. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually write the 3 parts all together rather than breaking it up into 3 groups like I've done here. But that's, how you want to style this is up to you. Okay, we're not going to use the update, though sometimes you do want to use update for events. But we are ready to write our function now. So it's going to be public. It needs to be public if it's going to be accessible from slot roller. Okay, so it's public, void, because it doesn't return anything, handle stop roll. Oops, no space there. Okay. And so this should be getting kind of a little normal to you, but still a little complicated. And notice that, this is kind of complex because we've got 3 classes involved for one event. Main has got one of the functions that the event uses. The event handler is in the event class, and slot roller is its own little class that deals with the images. And there's a button class that is separate from the whole thing. Okay, so we've encapsulated a lot of stuff. A project this small could have all been done in one big class. But think about expansion. What if you were to expand this and do more stuff? It's much easier if you encapsulate. And if you get in the habit of encapsulating your code now, it will help you in the future. It really will. Okay. So now we're going to write this handler. Okay. And like I said, the easy way to do it is, and it's already anticipating me. Look at this. Visual Studio knows if not lock one, that's close, but I actually want it to be if lock one. So if lock one is locked, okay, oops, I accidentally hit control there. Okay, if lock one is locked, then what I want to do is I want to unlock it. So lock one equals false. Okay. So the first one comes there, it's going to fall into that one. If it's unlocked, then it'll fall into this else if. I could have just done an if, but I like stringing them together. Else if lock 2 in this case. Okay. Because if the first one's unlocked, we still need to check to see if the second one has been unlocked. If that one has been, then we will, or excuse me, if that one has not been, then we will unlock it. So lock 2. And see, it's already anticipating me. Lock 2 equals false. Okay. If they're both unlocked, then it'll fall into the else clause. Whoops. Did not mean to do that. Okay, else. And here, what we want to do is we want to lock both of the locks. So lock 1 equals true. Lock 2 equals true. Okay, so that'll set us up for the next time we do this. And then I want to re-enable that thing. So main dot get component. Okay. And now, even though I made main a game object up above, this time I'm going to be honest with it and tell it what it actually is, which is main. So, and it lowercased it on me, so I'll have to fix that. Okay, sometimes Visual Studio is a little too helpful. So it's going to get component type of main. Okay. And it's going, and from that we're going to call enable lever. And that's it. You don't want an event handler to do too much. They should be pretty quick. And so this is just a small piece of code. As a matter of fact, you're going to notice that most of your scripts include very small, for the most part, methods. Okay, so there's our event handler, and we're done. We've written it. And so I'm going to go ahead and file, and I could say save all. I didn't change either of the other methods, so that'll be fine. And we go back here. Okay. And it compiles, and let's see if I made any errors, any typos that I didn't catch because you've already seen me making some typos. Okay. I should mention that it is a very warm day today, and my laptop is running a little hot despite the fan running in the room and everything. This is Flagstaff, and I do not have air conditioning. So when it gets hot, it slows down a bit, but it gets there. All right. So we've got it. It didn't have a problem with that, but if I run it, it's not going to do what I expected it to, because I got to do a few things first. So I need to go to Event System. Okay. And I need to add a component. And the component I need to add, actually, that's the hard way to do it. I'm just going to drag the event handler script over there. Script class cannot be found. Okay, did I spell something wrong? Let's see. Event handler is, oops. when I changed it, it didn't, for whatever reason, didn't update the name of the script. So back to Visual Studio we go. So again, debugging. It's one of those things you have to learn to do. Oh yeah, new behavior script. When I changed the name, it accidentally kept the old, the default name, which it shouldn't have done. So it should be event handler. Okay. Now save it again and go back over here. And we'll try that little trick again once it's done compiling. It is a very important skill to be able to read these things. Okay, so it's done. I'm going to bring up the event system. I'm going to drag the event handler script as a component of the event system. Okay, and now notice it's got none for these slot rollers. That's okay because I wrote code to find out what those are. Okay, but main it's going to need to know. And so I'll go ahead and drag main over into that one. Okay, and it wouldn't hurt to drag the slot rollers in there, and to do that because you don't actually have the slot rollers, but they're a component of the slot windows, so you can just drag the slot windows over there. And notice slot window, slot roller, it knows that it is a component, and so that'll work too. This was not a necessary step. Okay. But the one for main was a necessary step because I did not put that in start. I didn't make it programmatic in that case. Okay, so you have a choice there. You can either do it in the interface here, or you can make it a programmable thing if you want. Okay, all right. So we got that. I want to be sure now. Let's see. We got the event system. We got slot window. Have we added anything new? They all call for main. So they know where main is, so the slot roller knows where main is. The reason we had to associate main in this script is so that it knew where main was so that it could call that enable button function. Okay, I think I have everything. Let's find out. Let's operate and see. Okay, so we'll run it. Okay, and it's all ready. Console is clean. When I pull the lever, of course, I still have all those debug log messages, but and we already know from last time that it's going to disable the button. Hopefully, though, it'll finish up and re-enable the button when it's done. And it did. Look at that. Okay. Just to make the point, and you see that all the log messages are there. Just to make the point, I'm going to do it again and pay attention, and you'll see that it does not re-enable the button until all three windows are done. So these two windows stopped soon, and it didn't re-enable until this third window was done. Okay, so it's working exactly the way it should be now. Okay. 3 events got signaled, and those 3 events together caused it on the third event to re-enable the button. So it is working beautifully now. At this point, we've kind of got the basics. We've seen a lot of stuff. So we've seen how to do event handling. We've seen how to do timing. You know, we've seen how to do just basically moving objects around, writing scripts, tying scripts to objects and scripts to each other. We've learned a lot about C# programming that goes beyond what you may have noticed as normal programming. So we've really done quite a lot of work here. And I'm sorry that this video was a little bit long, but we covered quite a lot of ground in this one video. Going forward from here, not sure. We may do some make it a more complex program. For instance, what if we took user input as far as bets Then when they pull the lever, they may actually get some winnings or they may lose some. And we keep track of that as a score. So we'd set up a scoring system and make it a little more complex. I'm going to kind of challenge you to try that on your own. But if I were to give you any advice on how to do that, I'd say set up some standard bets: 1 credit, 5 credits, 10 credits, something like that, and then set up a chart of winnings depending on what combinations come up on the buttons, and then see if we can't figure out how to do that. I need to do some planning on that, but I've done something similar before, and I will make that game called Sedge available to you guys um, on GitHub, so that you can actually look at the code and play with it. It's free code as long as you don't try and sell it. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's it, and we'll see you in the next video.